Hello, welcome back to another episode of D54. I'm Amit, joined by Sunny, joined by Doug. We're back. The three of us are back. Welcome, guys.
It's always the best when it's all of us.
It really is. And yeah, no, really looking forward to this. We're so happy to do this one, man. We are covering Angamaly Diaries by the legendary director Lijo Jose Pellisery. Now, we can call him legendary. We've all seen his stuff now, and we're huge fans of this guy, man. Like, I was telling Sunny before, for me, this is the fifth movie of his I'm watching. So I've had the deep dive experience. But for Sunny, this is your second? This is your third. Third Lijo movie with because we watched Nanpako ages ago. And Doug, you just recently watched Imayu, which was an absolute masterpiece as well. So we are all on the Lijo train, guys.
I'm 100% in. 100%.
Love this guy.
Yeah. Definitely. This was definitely a different movie. I would describe it more as a commercial kind of movie compared to everything even I've watched. Like, he's someone that seems to have a lot of subtext, a lot of philosophy, a lot of religion in his movies, and this has parts of that, but I would say this is something that you watch it and you enjoy. But before we get into the reactions, we're going to do reactions, and this is going to be a fun one, guys. The last time you saw the three of us together, as I was saying before, we were not smiling because we were talking about Dan Matra from Mohanlal and Blessy, and that's not a movie you can smile through. So you guys want to check us out again on what we're like on the other side, check that one out. But if you want to stay with us for some good times and some laughter. But what did you guys think of this movie, Sonny? I pass it to you, man. How was the experience?
Oh man, I had so much fun with this movie. Like, compared to the two I've watched, this is far more just energetic, exciting, and just fun, I think, than anything else. Completely exhilarating from start to end, and just mesmerized by everything that was going on. And the thing that the common thread I'm seeing to all of Lijo Jose Pellisery's film is just the world building here. Excellent. Yeah. This place, Angamaly, just comes to life. I feel like I know it. Feel like I'm there with the people. The world building here is out of control, and just a fast-paced, excellent story, completely unpredictable. Loved it.
Definitely. What about you, Doug? How do you think about this one?
I echo everything Sonny just said. Let's move on. No, what I kept noticing when it came to the comments for the past film that we did with Imayo, a lot of people were saying, chaos. And this was the movie where I felt like I really saw that.
Yes.
Now, what it also did was truly solidify for me, like, oh, wow, this is an auteur director. And, probably somebody coming up in a newer crop. These films are newer, and definitely with like a fresher voice, a more unique take. And in this one in particular, that caffeinated editing style, but never in any of those moments was it anything less than cinematically beautiful anyway.
Yes.
It's just that it didn't necessarily, like most of the other movies that we watch are 2.5, maybe even 2.5 plus, and these are very economical in their scale. And instead of it relying on really long and drawn out scenes, it's giving you that, what you said, Angamaly is a living place. And it establishes that so beautifully with all of the montages, because you could almost call this montage the movie in the way that we were talking about, the Machete being like Gossip the movie. This was like, it's almost like here in Machete, we were getting like, Machete, sorry. We were getting more of a peek behind the veil of specific characters, where here it really felt like it was, this is a place and generation after generation of people just do this, right? Like, and it was so fun and so vibrant. And I had a little bit more story structure issues with this one. But I still, like, anytime those would pop up, I'm like, well, whatever, we're on to the next thing anyway, and I'm having a ball.
No, exactly right, man. It's definitely a lot of montages, but one thing that he does, as you mentioned before, Sonny, like, it's a combination. Like, the world building is so good and it's so real that you just feel immersed in this world, and like, he really treats the environment and everything that's around him with so much care. He doesn't singularly focus on anything. Like, even if you watch his movies, I think if you watch this, I could watch a movie with him and just watch the background and see what's happening there, because there's so much happening in the background if you just observe. Like, there's just, there's lights going on, or there's people walking past, or there's some signage which has some significance, or the music obviously is just another element which just adds to the senses of this movie. He's probably one of the best directors, honestly, that I think I've seen that uses sound and sound design, because it is a whole project on every movie of his I've seen, including this one, is just like, whoa, there's so much detail in this. And it's like, he must just give so much trust to the sound engineers and then oversee them and stuff like that. He works obviously closely with them. It is fantastic. But speaking of montages, I think that's a perfect place to start, because got some obviously reaction stuff to do, and I start exactly there, Doug. So yep, you read my mind there. Let's kick this one off. The drums.
I know, it like thrums in your blood.
Yeah. The quick cuts are so effective.
You could learn to cook watching this.
I know.
You know?
My mouth was watering every time I watched this.
No. The food, man.
Oh my god.
Damn, man. Oh man, I mean, I want to start with that point because I was like, when I first like saw this movie start like this, I was like, we're in for something pretty special here because it's just so it's like a 2-minute song and you capture the city so well. I wish every city had this, this kind of montage to them. I'd love to see montage.
It's a hell of a tourism campaign.
Exactly. With the song going, and I don't know, the voice is like it's like folk, and it just adds to that sort of feeling of what this town is about. It sort of takes you back to a different time, even. I'm pretty sure this is shot in present day. By present day, I mean like 2017 when this was shot. But obviously, it's in a medium-sized town in India. It's not a small town. It's like a medium-sized town. I think Angamaly is. We get that feeling, the hustle and bustle. Obviously, we talk about the food like multiple times, but different characters. They're all just regular people, living jobs and stuff like that. But you get I was so like impressed by this intro. I was like, oh man, I can't wait to see this. What about you guys?
Oh,
same.
This is brilliant. I mean, the ability to establish the sights, sounds, and even like the smells of this city in the first couple of minutes of a movie.
Yes.
Like it didn't need dialogue. It didn't need half an hour of fleshing out. I immediately have a vibe for what this place is about. It's got those different elements you see. There's the religious element with multiple shots of churches and nuns crossing the street. There's school kids getting on a school bus and going to work. There's the people hustling to get money on their street corners. There's the food. You have such a good sense of what this place is about and such good foreshadowing for the kind of, as Doug was saying, the chaotic energy of this movie, because that's what it is. You get so much and things move so quickly from one place to another that this is such a great encapsulation so quickly into the film of the sights and sounds and the characters we're about to follow.
Now, you wanted the good point, like even the smells. Like I didn't even notice that when you mentioned that. Like because the food and the close-ups, it's just stuff that he does that's beyond what I would even perceive. That's a great point you brought up. Like I was like, oh man, I can smell this food. How about you, Doug? What about you? What do you think of this little intro?
Well, I just immediately thought, like, especially when let's look at American films, right? Because it's not a fair comparison to say it in terms of other Malayali films or any other
Yeah.
films in India, right? Like, because this is going to be kind of a seminal cultural experience, and everyone,
Yeah.
I believe, in an Indian cinema must be like, yep, we know where we are, right?
Mhm.
And here in America, I've seen entire films that try to establish a place
Yeah.
not do it this well.
No.
Mm.
Right? So they'd be like, "Okay, this is the Pacific Northwest or this is New England," and there will be an entire film that's like, oh, by the end, somebody's like, "New York is a character," and here, no, that was done right
Yeah,
away,
yeah.
and what I caught, especially here on the rewatch, is that, like, we're seeing the food, so you brought up religion, it's
Mhm.
almost like we were getting little snapshots of every scene that we are eventually going to be served, right? So
Good
it's
point.
just like because my issue, and I'll just get right to it right now, is that I didn't necessarily feel like there was a resolution too
Mm.
much by the time we got to the end of the film. It was wonderful and I enjoyed
Okay.
myself and it is spectacular and I can't make movies and I loved it, right? So this is a small issue, but that was the one thing that kept sticking with me. Like,
Mm.
I wish there was, but that's a story, right? And maybe we weren't being given a story here. We were being shown again, like
Yeah.
this might be the third time we've seen it. This is what life is like here. And some people get out and some people don't. And those that don't probably end up in a cycle of doing this generationally. And
Yeah.
all of that is teed up here. Whoa.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep. Right there, 2 minutes, no exposition, no narration, no nothing, no let me tell you about a time in a story, like, no, there's this place I heard
Yeah.
of.
No
Nothing like that.
Scorsese, you know?
No.
Yeah, yeah, yep, that's what I was thinking of. None of that kind of stuff.
And one thing I'll add is, I'm sure there's places around the world like this. And if a director cast
Yeah,
an eye at any place around the world, whether it's Melbourne, Canberra, or anywhere in the US, they could find the life of that city and show it in the same way. But it's the direction here, the attention to detail as to what really makes up the components of this city that is the masterful
yeah,
direction here, because all places are beautiful and have a quality to them.
yeah,
It's the eye to detail and figuring out what to show here. It's the carcass of a, dead animal here
yeah,
that shows,
Yeah.
okay, this
exactly.
is just out on the
Yes.
street. That's the vibe here.
Uh-huh.
It's the drinks that are being made in 2 minutes and churned out like it's,
Yeah,
a production line. This is the hustle and bustle of this city. There's the nuns walking around.
yeah,
There's the key elements of the life of this city. There's schools, there's young people, there's religion, there's the grind. All of that, you see
correct.
it, and it's because of the masterful direction and the eye for the right kind of details, I think.
No, exactly right. And he does this thing that we've sort of seen. He brings to life places which you would not necessarily identify as beautiful, like
Yeah,
really rustic backgrounds. Like we saw it in Nanpakul with yourself, Sunny, with the small
yeah,
country town, and Ima you, it's we get to see how beautiful was that movie in basically
Ugh,
the country town. Like, and he's sort of done it again in this one as well. So it's done. But I gotta also mention the editing is so good in this one because one, the music
so
and the
fast.
overlay is so
yes,
good, right? The thing is, it's quick cuts, and normally quick cuts sometimes are too overwhelming. But he does this thing where he balances the pace pretty well. There's moments where it just sort of stops, like like when I saw the church, it's like fast, 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 cut, stop, slow, then cut, 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 fast again. So it's really he's like playing it like an instrument, like he's really playing with that. I'm not sure if it's necessarily Lijo, but the editing team, whoever's sort of there, they're really playing and making sure that this is not just over the top overwhelming, where we're not getting enough substance because it's such a tricky thing. How short can you make that video to be impactful but not be too short that you actually miss out on it. Because if it's gonna hit you the first time, and I think this
mm,
movie did that because we're watching it a second time. But even the first time I watched this, I was like, "Whoa, I've just been encapsulated into this world so
Oh,
quickly."
I was
Beautiful,
sucked in.
yes.
Yeah, like, and
definitely.
and I would say that this was a more effective opening than almost any of the movies that I've watched from the region thus far, just
Mm,
solely because it does exactly what both of you already said so effectively, so thoroughly, and so well, and a lot of it has to do with the music, and his choice of the
yes.
music, both diegetic and non, so, like, the
Mm,
music that exists and the music that doesn't, is, like, extraordinary,
yeah,
and I noticed this with the other film that we watched too. He loves this kind of, like, dissonance, and you mentioned the voice of the singer is
yeah,
kinda,
that's
like,
true.
folksy. It's not polished, it's not pretty,
Yeah,
it's real, and I adore that about his directorial style and the choices that he makes
yeah,
and the people he surrounds himself to be able to bring it there because you don't feel like, "Oh, I'm here." You can see it all the time, especially in movies made in America. Yeah, like, "This movie's supposed to be set here." Like, "No, it's not. I've been there. It's not there." This is
mm.
100% that place and the music that they surround themselves with and the way that they like to champion, what they do, right? Because immediately when we meet our main characters, it's all about the knit and the grit. They're all
Yeah,
about their team, and they're all about being down and dirty, and one of the main thrusts of the film is cutting and buying pork and breeding pigs, this
Yes.
disgusting thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
absolutely horrifying and gross thing. And we are charmed and endeared by it because we see how much it means to the community and what it can do to elevate your station.
Correct. Yeah, exactly
Amazing.
right. And we talked about all that without even talking about any characters. So there you go. Like we've barely touched on anything, and that's how much that one sort of compilation has done. But they do this consistently throughout the movie, and that's why I sort of wanted to include a montage, because the montages, I've never seen anyone use montages so well and so genuinely.
Effectively.
Because like montages, I think especially in Hollywood, I almost cringe sometimes when I see montages. Like they almost use as shortcuts. And
that's like, here we go. It's usually just a time gap, right?
Yes.
It's just a time gap. And this wasn't he uses the time gap here so effectively and so thoroughly. So it's not necessarily like, here we need to get this character from a child to a man. No, it's not that. We need to get these characters to express more about their story in a very short window of time. Otherwise, this would be a 3-hour film, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So we learn more about their world, not necessarily watch them age. And that's a brilliant stroke.
Definitely right. We'll move on to the next one, and this is going to talk about something which I thoroughly enjoyed about this movie. So this one might surprise you guys. That I included this one. Check this one in, but I found this scene pretty interesting. The snow is coming. Stop and start. Stop.
Here we go again.
Oh my god.
Jose, എന്തായി കാണിക്കുന്നത്? ആരെങ്കിലും ഒന്ന് രണ്ടുപേരും ഇങ്ങോട്ട് വന്നേ.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Had to include that one because it just cracked me up.
I'm so glad you did.
One part of this movie that I think is definitely there, and it's a comedy. There's definitely moments. It's not like a typical comedy, and there's a lot of, I guess you should say, dark humor, especially in that scene. Like we're literally laughing at this body that's dead being broken to pieces to shove into a coffin. But I mean, Lijo has this thing. I don't know. It had very reminiscent to Ima, yeah, right? With you, Doug, when you sort of watched that sort of
with the coffins. Yeah, I think he's got a thing with death. Yeah, and like kind of the
yeah.
absurdity of the act of dying and like how we all treat it. And I love that he had these two characters just immediately there to kind of subvert it. And you picked the right spot to start it, where they're like, this a-hole did this, you know, like they're there to watch somebody go away that they didn't like, right? Exactly. So they have no problem stepping in. No. And I love the detail that the coffin is already too small, right? Like it's already held together with twine. Way too small. You know? And this was, for me, it was the most like Tarantino of the story elements here. And we had previously discussed this, where there are those elements, and that's not to minimize what he does, because he is very much his own unique director, and I love his style, and I honestly would put him at an equal, if not higher level than Tarantino for just what he can achieve, and like isn't known. I can't believe I had never heard of this guy before recently, right? Like it is extraordinary what he's doing.
Yeah.
But definitely that moment where, like, you know, in Tarantino films, it would be some assassins like eating a grilled cheese and shooting somebody, you know. But here we got two people seeing somebody out of the world, and they do that But it does highlight, my later issues with the film, because it seems like these characters are set up to be like, we love our town so much that anyone that disparages the name of the town or anyone in the town deserves to go. So why aren't our adversaries that we see kill their idol, handed a tougher blow? We see one of them.
Yeah.
But by the characters that we are supposed to align ourselves with, why weren't they handed a tougher blow? It just kind of, it seemed like those scales were tipping, and that is, again, very real, right? Like, in real life, you just kind of have to make your concessions and you kind of have to move on. But like, the chummy nature, especially toward the end, really surprised me, as they finalize the deal. And I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself, but that's just to further underscore my point, and I promise not to beat on it too much, not like a corpse. But this, I was cracking up, like, the way we are right now. I thought it was hysterical. And from that moment on, I just knew I was in for a really, really good time. It's a great film, but it was also a good time.
Exactly right. Yeah, definitely. How about you, Sonny, man?
100%. I think a couple of points on that. Firstly, I just love the situational nature of this comedy. It just feels like this film, you're just kind of zooming in and out of the lives of these people. And we've just zoomed in at this completely random moment in these people's lives where this hilarious thing has happened. Like, while in a way it is contrived, it also felt like a strangely real occurrence that might happen in this place.
Yeah.
They've gone to a funeral and this random thing has happened, which I found hilarious. The second thing is just the ability of the director to just linger maybe 30 seconds longer than is comfortable on a thing to increase the hilarity of it. Because I think there was like 3 attempts. Yeah. Like, how many times do we need to go through that to get the thing? But just doing it for 30 more seconds makes it all the more funnier here. And just absolutely loved it. So fun. And it's an underrated part of this film, the hilariousness of kind of all of these sequences that are happening, and kind of underscores the fact that we're dealing with just a bunch of youth here. And that's something I had to remind myself the longer I'm watching, because they're continuously doing things that I'm just like, why are you doing this? You're about to screw up a really good situation you're in, whether it's Vincent with his, German girlfriend, or with their their pork business. They continually just do things to get themselves in trouble. But it is also just, this is these guys' life. They go to these things. They might be drunk. They might not be, but we're going to zoom in. We're going to focus on it. And then we're going to kind of zoom out again and never really give almost a resolution to that issue. We'll just go on to the next thing.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's definitely. And that actually brings up a good point, because I think the point you mentioned about Doug, the storyline sort of not always tying together, I think this is what he likes to do. I think this is what Lijo likes to do. He likes to leave a lot of loose ends. He doesn't like to tie the knots all the time, which might be a criticism, but from what I've seen so far, everything a lot of times is left like open. Like, it's not always like, and it's not normally a big criticism of the movie because it might be a smaller part, but I mean, he's a huge fan of open endings. And even this one potentially has an open ending in some ways as to what actually happened after that, but probably less than the other ones we've seen.
Yeah.
But the other ones are completely open-ended. But even it seems like this, he's like, on the decision making, I think it's meant to be a commentary or basically on how things are not like, tied together. They're not actually rational. You have to lean into the irrational and the absurd a little bit to understand Angamaly or any of the places we've been to with him, to be honest. Like, there's a certain part of things that things don't make sense here. And that's the way it is, because that's the way life is. Life doesn't make sense all the time. So I think that's sort of what it is. But in terms of this scene, what I really appreciate about this kind of stuff is, I know he must have a real appreciation or background in theater or something like that, because a lot of his movies feel very theatrical. Like, like we saw this in EMIU as well, and I've seen that with you, Sunny, with Nampakul, and truly it's like there's basically there's like a theater element to it, and we saw that in this, like, it's like, oh,
the wailing and the stopping and the wailing,
stop and crying and stopping, and it's like, okay, this he must have grown up watching theater or something like that, because I really appreciate that sort of style of things. And watching his movies, they feel so different. It feels almost like I'm watching like a theater performance sometimes, like, because it's so immersive. Like, when you go and see a show, like, like a Broadway show or something like that, or like a live performance, you get immersed more in the show because of, obviously the nature of it. You're seeing things live. These movies feel like that, and it's due to the sound work, the camera work, the performances, obviously, and all that. So that's what makes this difference. That's what makes the movie so different to me. At least that's what I think. The other part I want to mention before we sort of move on to sort of, because we're not seeing too many actors, but the part of trivia about this movie is this movie has, like, I don't know if it's a record or something like that, but it's got like 85 debut actors. So everyone in this movie, they're all active for the first time. Like, even the main actors.
The main characters.
Yeah, the main
but
characters.
I think that's to the credit. And I'm glad you said that because to get to your point and to further clarify my thing, it's not a criticism. It's just something that I was like kind of surprised by. You know, that was something that I kept noticing, and I wish I could have shut my brain off about it. And you know, obviously, I got to my own resolve about it. Like, this is just life, of course. You know, that's just the weird thing about only a 2-hour window or even a 2.5-hour window is that it's difficult to show those things. However, you saying that it feels intimate. It feels raw. It doesn't feel like a polished performance. And that's the same thing with the music and with the lighting, right? Like, so even in Imayu, you know, we had the flickering light bulbs. Like it allows itself to be a little bit grittier, you know, like there's some more layers that could be sanded off, but because they're not, it's that much more inaccessible, right? You know, like it's so much more of a sensory experience. And this one again washed over me like an experience. It's less like, let me present to you this fine thing that I've made, and more like, you want to hear a story? I got a story for you. You know, I love it. I adore that.
Let me take you somewhere. But yeah, let's continue on, guys. This has been really good so far. We've got some more pretty epic scenes coming up.
നമ്മളെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ കാര്യങ്ങൾ പോണത്.
എന്ത് കാര്യങ്ങള്?
നിങ്ങൾ നമ്മുടെ ഇന്ന് പോർക്കെടുത്തോണ്ടിരുന്ന ഇടയിൽ വെച്ച് നിർത്തി ഡയറക്റ്റ് ഇറക്കാൻ തുടങ്ങി. അത് പോട്ടെ വയ്ക്കാം. ഞങ്ങൾ ഹോൾസെയിൽ കൊടുക്കുന്നിടത്ത് നിങ്ങൾ കച്ചവടം തുടങ്ങി. അപ്പോഴും ഞങ്ങൾ മിണ്ടാണ്ടിരുന്നു. ഇപ്പൊ നിങ്ങൾ ഒരു പുതിയ പരിപാടി തുടങ്ങിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഞങ്ങൾ കൊടുക്കണേക്കാൾ 20 രൂപ കുറച്ച് കൊടുക്കുന്ന പരിപാടി. അതങ്ങനെ നിർത്തിക്കോ. മാത്രല്ല നീ നമ്മൾ അളിയൻചക്കര ഷാപ്പിൽ തള്ളി പുറത്തിറക്കി വിട്ട്. അത് നിന്റെ അടുത്ത് ചോദിക്കാൻ അറിയാൻ പാടില്ല. ഇവിടെ നമ്മൾ തമ്മിലൊരു കച്ചവടം നടക്കണമെന്ന് വെച്ച് മിണ്ടാണ്ടിരുന്നേണ്. അടി പൊട്ടുന്ന തോന്നണേ. അല്ല തോമസേട്ടാ, നമ്മുടെ ബൂത്തിനെ കൊന്ന് മറിയിട്ട് ഒരു ഇടപാട് വേണ്ടെന്ന് ഞാൻ എന്നെ പറഞ്ഞു. അതെ രവി, ഇതൊരു കച്ചവടാ. ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ലാഭം കിട്ടുന്ന വിലക്ക് ഞങ്ങൾ കൊടുക്കും, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ലാഭം കിട്ടുന്ന വിലക്ക് നിങ്ങൾ കൊടുത്തോ. എന്തേ രാജാ, നീ ചെല്ലാൻ നോക്ക്. ശരി, കാണാം. രാജാ, വണ്ടി കയറാ.
Man. Oh no. Shot.
I know.
Just wow.
Man.
Wow.
It got real.
Chaos.
Chaos. Exactly right.
I get it now, everyone.
Yes, exactly right. Chaos. But man, I mean, this was one of the points where you realize, all right, now, you know, the plot's going to get pretty thick now because there's actually some action happening. But my God, man, I mean, just when this hit, it was like, whoa. I mean, there's one that happens after this which really turns it even further. But I mean, again, the way this is done, I mean, shout out to these performances again. Like, this is the first time these guys have been on camera. Like, we got to remind ourselves here. Like, this especially the main guy, and I think Antony Varghese, he's become a pretty big deal now. Pepe. They actually still call him Pepe because of his role in this movie, which I didn't know. I've seen other movies of his, and people have commented saying Pepe was great, and I'm like, who's Pepe? Now I finally know who Pepe is. But even the other guy, man, like how
he was amazing.
Oh my God, the manic, unhinged energy. Yes,
whole film.
Throughout the whole film, he was probably my favorite person to watch on screen, just because he's doing the most with the least, right?
Yes,
he arguably has even less screen time than his brother, right?
Yeah,
But his moments are so extraordinary. Like, he is he's the loose cannon, and his brother, like, there's that scene later on where they're arguing in the house about the brother-in-law again, and he has that entire, just ripping him apart and telling him what he's gonna do, and then he steps out on that balcony and has his hands behind his back, and it's his brother just tapping him, like, that the moment this all started to happen, and the reason I like this scene more than the other bomb scene later on, which sets off, the second half of the film, is that you don't see it coming until all of a sudden he walks and stops and screams, and then you know something big's about to happen. But the way he and like the necklace coming up, like he's like that's who he really is. Like he must work every day to be a reserved version of himself that just, I do pigs now. I do pigs. I killed somebody and now I'm lucky enough to do pigs. But if you step on his toes, he becomes that guy. And it was so ruthlessly real, and like I've dealt with people like that where they just immediately hit that switch, and it felt so real. And if this is his first performance, I got to imagine a version of that guy is inside that actor, and I hope they fed him well, and I hope they gave him whatever he wanted.
He is the actual king of Angamaly. Yes.
It was a real pleasure to watch, especially anytime he was on screen. And, eventually later on, what happens to him too. And like, you kind of feel bad for him at that point.
Yes.
Just a really cool masterstroke of how to weave in. We hate him, then we really hate him, and then we kind of begrudgingly agree with him, and then we're okay with him, and then we actually sort of really enjoy him. Just enough time for him to go. Like, wow.
Amazing.
Sensational, man. Yeah. What about you, Sonny, man?
There's so much in this scene that we could talk about. It's the steady ratcheting up of tension, like from the very first moment when they come over and have a chat and everybody in the village is kind of watching them. You know that this is going to be a confrontation and it's a question of how far it's going to go. Doug, you made the excellent point about how this is a generational conflict, and you see the other meat store owner guy going, there's going to be a big fight today. He's seen this play out many times in the past, and this is just another iteration of it. And that's an excellent, just a little snapshot to show that, okay, this is just part and parcel of what this village is about. There's gangs that rise up and fall down, and we're watching one particular one in this time frame, I guess. And this main kind of, I guess you'd call him a villain, but you sympathize with him at the end, this Ravi character. It's such a beautiful performance because he's not sort of a one-dimensional villain in this film, because you see that he has this kind of nice relationship with his brother, I guess, Rajan, where he's able to cool him down sometimes, and it's the only guy who's able to get through to him. So there is that relationship. You see him, as Doug was saying, try and not lose his mind every time something doesn't go his way, because he's now changed to be like, I'm a businessman. So things have changed here. I can't lose my cannon or lose my cool every time something's happened. So you see him counseling his younger brother, don't do it. You see him in this scene saying, you've now gone past us to be a wholesaler yourself. You're undercutting our prices. We're not going to do anything about that. But now you've gone too far. So you see this kind of nuanceness to his character that I wasn't expecting. I thought, okay, these guys are the bad guys. They're never going to work together. They're going to be the kind of primary antagonists here. But that's not how it goes. So a great job in like getting us to be sympathetic with this character, who that's not where I thought the film would go when I first watched this guy on the screen. When he arguably kills the mentor of our main character, you're like, okay, these guys are the bad guys here. That's it. These guys are the bad guys. So just amazing. And I can never describe the sounds that Lilo Jose Pellisery and his sound editing people use. I think you described it as synthetic in the last movie we watched, Army. I don't know what these sounds are. Occasionally there's actual singing going on, but they're just kind of simple sounds that are just ratcheted up a little bit, or weird sounds. I don't know how to describe it, but they just work perfectly for this movie.
I think in this one is because I think in Truly it was more like an alien kind of race kind of thing that they're trying to do in that one. Doug, would love to get you to watch that one too. That movie's gonna blow your mind. It's still blowing my mind probably right now. But I think in this one, the way I could describe the sound in this one, it sounds a little more rustic, I would feel, because even some of the sounds feels like the gate just moving in and out, like it's like that kind of the wind with the gate just moving. So there are more, I think, wherever he is, I think he uses the sounds of the place very well into the score, actually. And obviously he has, he knows how to drop drama, because some of the shots in this, as I was saying, like you could literally watch this movie and just go frame by frame and just go like, I'm taking a screenshot of this, because they're so, I mean, he's like,
gorgeous.
How he works with the camera is him and whoever is the camera work he's working with is sensational. Like, the slow motion with, as you said, the chain going there. And there's a scene with him at the end just standing defiantly and no one else is around him compared to the scene before when it's all crowded. Like that is so well done how you can sort of take us, to the scene with everyone congested to then out and we just this one person at the end looking at what he's done, and I'm not sure if it's similar to the sound. Like obviously we can't understand Malayalam, but I'm noticing they're speaking very rough in this movie. Like I feel like the way they're speaking is like very, I don't know if it's a different dialect or something like that, but it doesn't sound like a polished form of Malayalam. Like they're kind of like, like they're more growling and stuff like that. So again, that just adds to sort of the character of this movie and the character of Angamaly, I guess, which is what he's done so well. But I mean, yeah, this scene was pretty epic and it sort of sets the train for sort of what happens next. But yeah.